Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised. Earth, air, water, and fire. Code Red. In an instant, without warning, the forces collide, thrusting our fragile human lives into unthinkable turmoil. For the next hour, you'll experience moments of desperation and triumph from around the world. Real video that will surprise you, frighten you, and inspire you. Rare unseen footage of unexpected disaster, terrifying crisis, and undeniable proof of the indomitable human spirit. These are the real-life struggles of trained professionals and everyday heroes. The people who rise to the challenge and put their lives on the line. This is Code Red. Moment of survival.
I'm firefighter Mike Newman. For the past 20 years, I've dedicated myself to saving lives and property of people in trouble. Any rescue worker can tell you the difference between life and death comes down to two factors: timing and knowledge. That's where you come in. If you know what to expect, if you know how to react, then you can help the people who are there to help you. What you're about to see are real people in crisis and what they did to survive.
Las Vegas, Nevada. A small passenger jet prepares for its final approach. But there's a problem. The pilot quickly radios the airport's control tower.
We just tried deploying the gear manually and we're getting nothing.
An air controller checks the plane with binoculars. This inspection may spot the problem.
Take a look at this jet.
The tower confirms the pilot's fears. The jet will have to be crash-landed, with 5 adults and 2 small children on board. The plane circles for 30 agonizing minutes as it burns off its excess fuel. On the ground, emergency crews watch and wait. Finally, with the fuel tanks low, the pilot begins his approach.
Runway 19 left, number 1.
The control tower gives final clearance. The jet is now flying on fumes. There will be no second chance.
Good luck.
The passengers assume the crash position, preparing for the worst. Without the cushion of wheels, the fuselage bends as the jet skids along the runway. Flames shoot from the tail. The cabin begins to heat up. Now the flight crew fears the remaining jet fuel will ignite. The pilot fights to keep the plane on the runway. As the jet slows, the passengers are ready to make a quick escape. But just before they can turn, the doors latch. A massive fireball engulfs the fuselage. Just at that moment, the crew flings the door open.
The aircraft has stopped at the intersection of runway 25 right and runway 19 left.
The terrified passengers flee the scene, knowing the plane is about to explode as fire crews arrive and douse the flames just in time. To survive this nightmare, the passengers and crew of the small plane had to be prepared for the worst.
Contact Las Vegas Tower on 118.75. Good luck.
They had an escape plan and stuck to it.
The aircraft has stopped at the intersection of runway 25 right.
And that became their moment of survival. Hillsboro, Oregon. Daredevil Lee Ullman is about to show a crowd of spectators just what it is that makes him one of the country's most daring stuntmen.
Hanging on that bar between the wheels of Jimmy Franklin's aircraft, Lee Ullman.
He's attempting the death-defying axle hang, a stunt that makes even the most experienced aerial acrobats flinch with fear. But as the numbing 200-mile-per-hour wind pummels the stuntman, he loses his grip.
A problem has happened on the airplane. Lee Ullman use of the safety wire did come into play.
Ullman slips helplessly from the landing gear axle. He now hangs between life and death, literally by a thread. Although the safety wire keeps Ullman from falling, there is no plan in place to return him safely to the ground. Now the daredevil is too exhausted to climb back into the cockpit, and any attempt to land would surely result in tragedy. On the ground, a team of Ullman's colleagues mobilize to aid the helpless stuntman. They've come up with a daring rescue plan, but it's a risky one. Two men sit in the bed of a pickup truck as the plane slowly eases down at a constant speed. They've got Ullman safely in the truck bed, and it seems as though the ordeal is over. But the safety wire is still attached to the aircraft. Now, at 80 miles per hour, all three men are in peril. But before another tragedy unfolds, the wire is cut and they're freed from the airplane. In such extreme situations, even when you may think you've prepared for the worst-case scenario,
A problem has happened on the airplane.
unanticipated problems always seem to arise. When professional stunt performer Lee Ullman took to the skies that fateful day, little did he know that it would be his friends who steal the show and bring him safely back to Earth.
Was that a show or what?
El Toro, California. 400,000 people attend the annual Navy Relief Air Show at the Marine Corps Air Station. The U.S. Navy's Blue Angels are the main attraction of today's show. Although they look easy, these maneuvers are incredibly dangerous. Only a few feet separate the jets as they pass by at speeds of over 350 miles per hour. A mistake of inches could mean disaster. Another star of the show is Marine Colonel Jerry Caddick, who flawlessly executes thrilling stunts in his F-18 Hornet. He's a hometown favorite with the crowd. The onboard camera records the ground racing by as Caddick begins a dangerous maneuver. It's a full performance climb. The F-18 streaks in low, angles up, and rockets to 12,000 feet in less than 60 seconds. But something goes wrong. Caddick loses control of the Hornet. Now, 25 tons of hot metal and jet fuel plunges down toward the unsuspecting crowd. He gets the nose up, but then the fantail catches and the jet slams into the tarmac. The helpless pilot is bashed again and again in the cockpit as the burning plane skids wildly out of control. The audience is stunned. Crash trucks respond. They only have seconds before the jet fuel will burst into a raging inferno, consuming pilot and plane. Paramedics race in. Few in the crowd realize how close they all came to death. In the last few moments before a crash that was sure to kill him, Colonel Caddick executes an emergency turn and steers the crippled jet away from the crowd. By putting the safety of the spectators first, Caddick becomes hero and victim at the same moment. Amazingly, Caddick survives.
Fighter pilots or air show pilots or whatever are trained that there is no room for emotion in the cockpit. Emotion will kill you.
Colonel Caddick lives to fly another day. Coming up on Code Red. Time and luck run out.
Oh my God!
An SUV teeters on destruction.
Don't touch anything else.
And a freak accident pins a man under 2 tons of burning steel. Races against the clock. And battles against the elements.
Unbelievable!
Plus, a rescue on the high seas.
Whoa!
You'll have to see to believe. Next.
The cardinal rule at any accident scene is to never move the victim until the scene itself is stable. Otherwise, anything you do could just make the situation worse. But when time is the enemy and there's a life on the line, waiting can be even more disastrous.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, SUVs are more than 3 times as likely to roll over as regular passenger cars. Needless to say, this poses a distinct danger to their drivers. Los Angeles, California. A terrifying accident on a freeway overpass leaves a man literally hanging on for his life. After losing control of his SUV, the driver finds himself balanced between 2 concrete barriers, trapped. His car perches precariously 50 feet above the freeway.
Okay, we need a tow line. The car's slipping.
Police immediately grasp the danger of the situation as the terrified driver tries to remain absolutely still. He's afraid to move, even to turn the engine off. But an officer talks him through it.
Reach under right here, underneath the steering wheel, and turn it back towards you. There you go. Okay, don't touch anything else.
The driver starts to panic. He wants to get out, but officers are worried that any movement might send the vehicle crashing to the freeway below.
We don't want you to get out yet. The car's not stable, okay?
Within seconds, the fire department arrives. The car is moments away from falling. They need to get the man out now. With the jaws of life, they slowly pry into the door, careful not to dislodge the vehicle from its perch. At last, the door is open, but the driver still can't get out. His leg is broken, pinned under the crumpled dashboard. A fireman climbs into the car, placing himself in jeopardy. The driver can't believe anyone is willing to risk their own life like this. The pain is excruciating, but he stifles his screams as they pull him from the vehicle and carry him to a waiting ambulance. Knowing that tragedy was imminent, the rescuers acted quickly. They kept the victim calm and took some daring but calculated risks. As a result, all the victim needed was a cast for his leg and a tow line for his car. Miami, Florida, a freak accident. A man is trapped under this burning vehicle. Moments ago, he was filling his van's gas tank in the emergency lane of the freeway, his young son sitting in the passenger seat. Suddenly, this Chrysler swerved into him. The impact ignited the man's gas can, setting the Chrysler ablaze. The driver of the Chrysler managed to stumble away from the fiery wreck uninjured. Horrified witnesses pushed the van out of the way and pulled the son to safety. Suddenly, they made a chilling discovery. The boy's father is pinned underneath the flaming Chrysler, possibly burning alive.
Oh, we got an injured man here.
It's clear that the trapped man could die before rescue workers can arrive.
We gotta get him out.
Incredibly, 10 separate onlookers entered the searing flames, lifting the 2,000-pound vehicle off the doomed man and pulling him to safety. When the fire department arrives, the Good Samaritans disappear. This man owes his life to 10 anonymous strangers. Ordinary heroes who just happened to be in the right place at the right time. 2 veteran stunt drivers are at the start of a spectacular show of high-octane pyrotechnics. In a few moments, they'll drive through a wall of flames and then explode their own car while still inside. They've performed this stunt so many times that to them it's almost routine, but they're still keenly aware of the danger they face. All eyes are fixed on the track. The crowd roars as the stuntmen gun their car toward the point of no return. They trigger a flare bomb, sending a plume of flames 60 feet high. The cheers of the crowd reach fever pitch. A moment later, timed charges in the car blow the doors and hood into the night sky. But that's not all. For the climax, the drivers stumble away from the carnage like human torches, burning from head to foot. They have only a few seconds before the 1,000-degree flames will blister through their safety suits. The fire crew moves in to extinguish the blaze. As rehearsed, the flames are swiftly snuffed out. The show has been a success. Everything went according to plan. 2 crew members move in to douse the burning car. They are dressed in minimal protective gear for this routine task. And then, the unthinkable happens. One of the explosive tanks has failed to ignite during the stunt. With the doors already blown, the crew members take the full force of the explosion. They stagger away, flames burning through their flimsy clothes. While one is immediately hosed down, the other hits the dirt, allowing his colleagues to get to him. In moments, the flames are extinguished and the crew member is safe. Despite being only inches away from a massive detonation, the crew members walked away with only minor injuries, thanks to the rapid response of their colleagues. Coming up on Code Red, the heat of crisis forges unexpected heroes. Trapped in an inferno, a mother battles to save her daughter's life. And stranded on a sinking ship, abandoned by the crew, one man fights to save every passenger on board, struggles for survival.
It's not reaching him.
Against impossible odds. Next.
Everyone breathes a sigh of relief when a fire in a high-rise is finally contained. But in the middle of that nightmare, in what seems like hell on earth, I've seen some of the most amazing things happen. And if they aren't miracles, well, I don't know what you'd call them.
Pattaya, Thailand. Flames race up the 17 floors of a mammoth luxury hotel. The street below is choked with rescue vehicles. Confusion is everywhere. Bystanders and medical personnel rush to the aid of the victims. More than 60 people have already been injured in the disaster. The intense battle continues on the street, firefighters throwing everything they have at the inferno. Because of the confusion and chaos on the street below, a vacationing mother and daughter are overlooked on the 15th floor above. Keeping a cool head in the blazing hotel, Rochelle Steinsalmi uses her cell phone to alert the rescuers below. But even the truck's longest ladder can't reach them. The black cloud grows thicker. The fire officials know that smoke inhalation kills more quickly than fire. A rescue helicopter arrives. It looks like Rochelle and Sana will be saved, but high winds force the pilot to abort. It's a dark moment for mother and child. Then, a rescue team on the roof lowers a lifeline and harness, but the sharp winds kick it out of reach. Helpless onlookers watch, spellbound. The smoke is intense, but so is the mother's determination. Rochelle uses her daughter's teddy bear to reach the last few inches. The mother works quickly under the intense pressure, barely securing Sana with the straps. But the brave little girl holds on with all her might as the team hauls her to safety. Now it's Rochelle's turn. First, she must navigate a narrow ledge 15 stories above the ground. But before she can secure herself in the harness, the crew begins to hoist her to the roof. Determined to be reunited with her daughter, she clings to the cable as the wind buffets her against the building. She uses every ounce of strength just to hold on. With a final effort, the rescuers pull her over. Rochelle and Sana are rushed to the hospital, but are later released with just minor injuries. But it'll be 10 more exhausting hours until this monster fire is under control. Oahu, Hawaii. It's an island oasis renowned for its spectacular beaches. But today, a terrifying incident finds tourist Hugh Alexander drowning in turbulent ocean waters. While posing for a photo on a picturesque cliff, with the ocean spray breaking over the rocks behind him, Hugh is violently knocked off into the surf. The fall is steep and the surf is fierce. Onlookers fear the worst. But amazingly, Hugh is alive and conscious. Rescuers try to throw him a line, but Hugh is too far away.
It's not reaching him.
Lifeguards arrive on the scene, but Hugh has been sucked into a water cave beneath the cliff. With each wave that comes in, the cave is filled with water and emptied of air. The lifeguards call for Hugh to swim out to them. But there's no response. One of them tries to swim in, but he's unable to find Hugh in the dark cave.
No sign of him.
Still fighting for his life, Hugh has wedged himself behind a rock. When the water rushes in, he holds his breath and clings tightly to avoid being thrashed against the craggy cave roof. He waits for the water to surge out and launches a desperate swim. The lifeguards are ready. But a strong wave knocks Hugh and the guard who saved him back into the ocean. Fortunately, they're tethered to the wave runner and are pulled to safety. Paramedics are waiting on shore. Hugh's ordeal lasted 2.5 hours and left him covered with scrapes and bruises. He's treated and soon released from a local hospital. Through determination and quick thinking, Hugh was able to survive an incident in which everyone else had presumed him dead. He proved that when odds are stacked up against you, a clear head and decisive action can help turn the tide. The Indian Ocean off the coast of South Africa, a Greek luxury cruise ship, the Oceanus, is making a leisurely trip around the Cape of Good Hope. The passengers bask in the sunshine, unaware that in the next few hours their excursion through paradise will become a nightmare in hell. When the ship enters the treacherous waters of the notorious Wild Coast, a heavy storm forces the vessel too near the shore. Back at sea, a breach in the hull is discovered. The enormous liner begins to founder. It's taking on water fast and listing dangerously. The 500 passengers are astounded to discover that the captain and his crew have already abandoned ship, leaving them on their own. One of the onboard entertainers, guitarist Moss Hills, is among the first to notice that the ship is sinking and that the passengers are alone.
And suddenly here was this water rushing down a passageway. And I had my small video camera with me, and I knew that things weren't right, so I started to film.
Right down below now, there's water everywhere. It's sloshing about from side to side.
With the captain and crew gone, Moss takes it upon himself to organize the evacuation of 500 passengers. He manages to get half of the tourists into lifeboats with the help of his fellow entertainers. But then the sinking ship pitches to an alarming 40-degree angle. The remaining lifeboats cannot be launched. There are still more than 200 people on board and the boats are useless. Moss and one of his colleagues race to the bridge to try and call for help.
National Sea Rescue need a spare channel. Can you help over?
5 agonizing hours pass before the South African Air Force rescue helicopters arrive.
It was very difficult for the helicopters to be able to lower anyone. The ship's on its side, it's rolling around in the storm, plus there's wind blowing, so the helicopter Navy guys who came down were on very long ropes and swinging from side to side, very hard for them to get on board.
Time is rapidly running out as the ship sinks deeper into the ocean. Moss lashes himself to a rail, helping to guide the rescue officer on board.
I grabbed their legs to pull them down, and we got 2 divers on board that way. And when they got on board, they said, look, the situation's worse than they anticipated. We were starting to tip up in the bow now. We were going down.
As soon as the officer touches down, they begin strapping the passengers into the harness, women and children first. The ship is now sinking fast. There are only minutes left before it will disappear under the waves. The guitarist hurries the last tourist to safety. Then, when everyone is clear, straps himself and his wife in, and they are lifted off.
Towards the end, I did have fairly dark thoughts, but I just always think, well, I'll get out of it somehow.
In its final moments afloat, the Oceanus tilts forward into a vertical descent. It hovers for a few moments before settling down to an eternal grave at the bottom of the ocean. Back on shore, the distressed passengers reunite with their friends and family. Every single soul has been saved thanks to the bravery of one man.
For me, worse than the fear of actually sinking, I think, was the fear of failing all these people who put their trust in us.
The captain, who deserted his ship and left 500 people to die, remained stubbornly unrepentant.
When I order abandon the ship, doesn't matter what time I live. Abandon is for everybody. If some people like to stay, they can stay.
I wouldn't expect anybody, any captain or anyone in authority, to die to save me, but I do expect them to do their duties.
Although the ship was lost, all 557 passengers and crew were saved by a ship's guitarist. Still to come on Code Red. Help arrives in the nick of time, but the danger is just beginning. Winds kick up over a flash flood.
The current is moving very fast. Very tricky situation.
Rip currents swirl under a deadly dam. And flames surround a violent train wreck. Their rescue's gone awry.
Oh my God!
Next. Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
An experienced pilot can make even the most daring rescue look easy. The truth is, there are no guarantees a rescue mission will go off without a hitch.
Maricopa County, Arizona. Every year, wide open spaces of Arizona desert are pounded by a season of torrential rains.
Well, as you can see, the flood has completely washed over the overpass here, and the current is moving very fast.
The man in this pickup truck is not just stranded. His life is hanging in the balance. The waters below have flooded, causing a near-total collapse of the bridge above.
Now, we don't know exactly how much damage has been sustained by the bridge, but from the way things look, it's not very good.
There's no telling at what moment this overpass will give way, sending the truck and its owner into the flooded canal.
The county sheriff's department does have a deputy standing by, just in case.
A Maricopa sheriff's helicopter arrives just in time.
Well, there you see the county's rescue chopper. There is a sheriff's deputy standing on the right skid. He's trying to assist the pilot navigating the helicopter through this very difficult situation.
Maneuvering through a heavy crosswind, this pilot knows that the bridge could be swept away at any second.
Okay, we're bringing her in now. Over.
But he remains calm and makes no hasty moves.
Well, it doesn't look like he has time to set up a rescue line here.
Get more clear below. Bring her down easy.
The pilot's going to have to set the helicopter down on that truck. Very tricky situation.
The pilot aims his right skid to within inches of the helpless motorist.
Well, there is a lot of wind at this time, but the chopper is very solid right now. They're really holding that thing steady.
Despite his fear, the man obeys the deputy's command and climbs to safety.
There he goes. You know, they made it look easy, but the way that rescue was done, there was nothing simple about what they just did.
But on a day like today, a rescuer's work is just getting started.
10-4, Phoenix. We have another situation downstream.
The rule in this situation is perfectly clear. When a raging current of over 500 pounds per square foot washes out the path ahead, never attempt to cross the road if you can't see the road. The Paris Air Show. Time to show off the latest in military hardware. The advanced Russian Sukhoi Su-30 is one of the most maneuverable jet fighters in the world. To show it off, the pilot does a dangerous vertical corkscrew routine. But when he does an extra loop, the flight plan comes to an unexpected end. Smoke fills the sky and debris from the wreckage is scattered across the airfield. Firefighters quickly extinguish the flames. This is a controlled dive. No one has ever dared except this pilot. As the plane pulls out of the downward loop, the tail slams into the ground, igniting the volatile jet fuel. The pilot acts quickly. He punches the throttle, forcing the plane into a steep ascent. This maneuver buys just enough time for the pilot and his co-pilot to eject from the plane before it becomes a $50 million pile of rubble. Incredibly, both pilots walk away from the crash. A stunning moment of survival. In this rural town, a flash flood turns streets into rivers and rivers into highways of death and destruction. Trucks, cars, buses are abandoned in the middle of what a few hours before was a road. Terrified commuters are stranded in their cars. Vehicles are battered and swept away by the floodwaters. Pedestrians run for higher ground as the water continues to rise, while others desperately cling to any foothold of safety. Helicopters are sent out across the city to rescue civilians stranded by the deluge. A police chopper spots a frightened boy trapped on a traffic island as floodwater rushes past. The rescuer is lowered on a lifeline to the helpless teenager. What would be a routine task is complicated when the boy begs to take his bike with him. The man reluctantly agrees. Once the line's secure, the helicopter crew jams on the winch. The pair lift skyward. As they go up, the line strains under their weight. 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. The sound of the raging water is replaced by the roar of the rotor blades. Soon, they'll be safely inside the dry and warm helicopter. But then, the cable snaps. The water that once threatened their lives now saves them as it cushions their fall. Still holding the boy, the rescuer manages to struggle against the current to reach the shore and safety. Even with a disastrous fall, this lucky pair is given a second chance for survival. This dam on the Mohawk River has become a deadly trap for boaters now stranded in the freezing water. A medevac helicopter stands by while a team of rescuers carefully makes its way into the surging water beneath the dam. At their signal, a young woman leaps towards safety. They grab her, but she's forgotten to detach the rope securing her to the dam. Now the entire crew is in danger of being sucked into the whirlpool. As the lifesavers struggle to free the young woman's line, their own boat begins to sink into the deadly undertow. Still, they can't unhook the cable. The frantic tug-of-war continues and threatens to capsize their boat. Suddenly, she slips through their grasp.
She's in the water.
Other boats race to assist as the young woman crawls back to her perch. A powerful surf-skimming jet boat arrives. First, they drag the two men a safe distance from the dangerous current. Then, the young woman is also pulled free, exhausted and cold, but unharmed.
Transport to emergency.
Two children remain huddled on the ledge. They can't swim, so they're forced to sit tight in the cold until a rescue team is lowered from above and hoists them up foot by foot and one by one. The undertow surrounding this dam proved too much even for these seasoned rescuers. But with their perseverance and quick improvisation, everyone made it home safe.
Transport to emergency.
Still to come on Code Red. Terror on troubled waters. A weekend adventure becomes a fight for survival. And a routine fishing trip becomes a maritime disaster. Next.
Whitewater rafting is an exhilarating sport, but it can suddenly become a deadly one. To avoid a tragedy, there are basic rules that every rafter should know before they even enter the water.
Trinity County, California, From high alpine mountains, thousands of cubic feet of water per second surge through a twisting obstacle course of whitewater rapids known as Trinity River, a lure for adventurers. These thrill seekers are approaching a river rat's worst nightmare, the hole. Here, a reversal of turbulence pins anything that gets caught in it in a grinding downward spiral. The first draft follows the standard safety rules. Don't fight the current and don't panic. But as the second group plunges down, they get sucked into the hole and their craft is stuck. The whirlpool twists the raft back under the rapids. It flips like a pancake, tossing everyone into the freezing water. 3 of the passengers are swept downstream and out of danger. But 2 more are trapped in the hole, clinging desperately to the raft. While one grasps on for her life, the whirlpool sucks the other under. He disappears from sight. But then, amazingly, he resurfaces and is swept downstream. The last rafter is left behind. She frantically tries to swim against the surging undertow. But it's a costly mistake. The overwhelming force sucks her back in.
Get away from the boat! Let go of the boat!
The longer she clutches to the boat, the weaker she gets. Too exhausted to fight, she finally succumbs to the paralysis of the cold. The turbulence drags her under. Her terrified friends fear she may have been pulled down to a watery grave. After what seems an eternity, she's ejected, and at last she's free of the whirlpool. But her nightmare isn't over yet. Now she's too exhausted to ride the rapids. The river pitches her over sharp rocks, and she's submerged again. Her teammates scramble along the rocks, trying to shout instructions, but their calls are drowned out by the roar. A lifeline is thrown, and with her last drop of strength, she grabs the float and is at last hauled to safety. Chicago, Illinois. This deadly inferno is the work of an arsonist. All 5 stories are engulfed in flames, and the tenants have become trapped inside. A thick smoke threatens to suffocate the residents on the upper floors. Gasping for breath, a man and a 5-year-old girl lean from a 3rd-story window as the room behind them fills with deadly fumes. A group of young men hold up a blanket. It seems their only hope, so the man drops the child. She's caught, unharmed, and quickly carried away. But the man upstairs is still trapped, and the fire is growing more intense. Just as he is about to lose consciousness, the firefighters slide the ladder to his window. But the toxic smoke has taken its toll. The man is too disoriented to climb out to the ladder. A fireman rushes up, and the man is guided to the ground. Both the man and the little girl are finally safe.
You're gonna be okay, baby, okay? All right?
Now homeless in the middle of winter, these people are faced with rebuilding their lives. Because of the combined efforts of local citizens and the Chicago Fire Department, not one single life was lost in the blaze.
You're gonna be okay, baby, okay? All right?
Portland, Maine. Fishermen on the cold waters of the North Atlantic see a plume of black smoke on the distant horizon. In these seas, they can only rely on each other for help, so they rush to investigate without hesitation.
Whose boat is that? Who's it belong to? Belongs to Jerry Balzano on Portland, Maine.
Drawn by a distress call, a local news helicopter circles around. With no Coast Guard in the vicinity, the only help in these icy waters are fellow fishermen. As his boat is consumed by flames, Jerry Balzano fears it's too late. But risking his boat and his own life, another fisherman pulls alongside of the floating inferno for a quick evacuation.
Everybody's off from it. Everybody's okay.
Just as the ship's radio announces the rescue, the boat explodes into an incredible cloud of fire and smoke. Debris flies into the air, landing in the water, and barely missing the boat that just rescued Jerry. The Coast Guard arrives moments after the explosion. Without the rescue efforts of the fishermen, Jerry and his crew would have been at the ocean's bottom. On this day off the coast of Portland, Maine, fishermen showed their unity and brotherhood. Today, Jerry Balzano is living proof that without this unspoken fraternity, he would have been a casualty of the sea. Farmington Hills, Michigan. Black ice has spun this car head-on into traffic. An officer carefully approaches to help the frightened driver, when suddenly another driver loses control on the same patch of ice and drives completely over the top of the stalled car. Neither driver is injured, but both are visibly shaken. And the two strangers comfort each other after their shared moment of survival. Next on Code Red, an unthinkable train wreck leaves survivors scrambling for their lives.
Railroad crossings are a common inconvenience and hazard. Too often, people try to beat the train. And almost always, it's a race that ends in tragedy. But when the racer is driving a tanker full of explosive gas, the result is catastrophic.
Mexico City, Mexico. A cloud of black smoke and 50-foot flames engulf the site of a train wreck. Miraculously, the driver of the tanker truck, the train engineer, and all the travelers in the crowded passenger car survived the collision, but are now running for their lives. Passing motorists don't realize they're brushing so close to disaster as the fire superheats the tanker's cargo of over 8,000 gallons of compressed natural gas. It's a ticking time bomb. Everyone in the area knows it's unstoppable. They dive behind buildings and over retaining walls, seeking any shelter they can find and bracing themselves for the inevitable. Even from a mile away, the shockwave rattles a local news chopper. The tremendous looming fireball is visible across the city. Amazingly, the massive locomotive engine not only survived the explosion, but shielded a nearby hotel from the brunt of the blast. When the ambulances arrive, they find that only 6 people are injured by the devastating event, making this one of the most incredible stories of survival in the city's history.